Go ahead and tuck the kids in. PG time is over.
Hello and good afternoon. You're listening to Everything Paranormal Podcast Show 2021 for the year 2021. I'm your host, Paramike, and into the deep dark dungeons of I don't give a damn, because you're all blathering idiots and mouth breathers with just being an amoeba. She is the gothic, lovable.
I'm Paralore.
That's right. She's going to continue with her emails that she desperately is trying to get through. And then we're going to go to some more urban legends, which has been a while
Yeah,
since
we
we've
haven't
done 'em.
finished. I got like a plethora of different sites with urban legends. We haven't finished one of the sites yet.
Yeah. I don't even remember where we left off of the site.
I do. We
Um,
were on children.
Yeah, I know that. But exactly where?
The last one we did was the Shadow Man.
The Shadow Man. Okay,
The one
hold on.
below it, which I'm reading right now, they got rid of Robert LaFoe.
Yeah, we read that one.
We haven't read it.
Yeah, we did.
We did?
Yes.
You sure?
Yes. I think it was The Watcher that we left off at.
Okay. If you say so.
So, in Urban Legends, we're going to continue with The Watcher, which should be interesting. And there's
Yeah.
a bunch more.
Let's see. I'm pretty sure everybody already seen Mandalorian. But there's some stuff I got here, which I'm, for Paranews, I'm calling, Paratainment. Entertainment news. But paranormal way. But in paranormal sense.
I like that.
Baby Yoda is history's greatest monster. Why it's high time we canceled the child. Meaning, the true villain of The Mandalorian, the violent creature at its heart, is what they're calling Baby Yoda. And this was done by Hugh Fellerton. Again, a lot of these are back in November 12th. But, like Paramike said, I have to get through a lot. Let's see.
Just because I think it's next week, you're having teeth surgery. Correct?
Yes, I'm having dental surgery. It's going to be a little while before I can talk.
Yeah, so
Getting an overhaul.
So I'll be doing most of the episodes until Paralora can come back when she has her new teeth, which should be interesting to hear for an episode. But I'm going to try to finish off what she couldn't do by the time she gets her teeth done. And I'm going to be basically bouncing back and forth between her stuff and urban legends if we don't finish them, and a bunch of other stuff that can happen. So just to let you guys know, an FYI.
I'm going to try to do some. I'm just, depends on how I feel pain-wise.
But yeah, that's what's going to happen. So bear with me, and also on our Facebook page, if you want to say something for Paralore and everything, please do so. It's facebook.com/capital E, capital P, capital P, podcast, show 2021.
Okay. The site I'm reading, Baby Yoda being possibly, secretly evil, Radio Times. Let's see. Article starts, evil comes in many forms in the world of Star Wars. The cackling, wizened corruption of the Emperor. The tortured, emotional outburst of Darth Vader. The blank-faced obedience of the stormtroopers. course, they're wearing helmets, so how the fuck can they blank-faced? Whoever decided Padawans should wear ratty little braids all the time. But in today's Star Wars projects, the true face of villainy is more insidious. Hidden away from us all under a layer of latex, cuteness, and huge innocent eyes. Because in Disney Plus's The Mandalorian, it's the inequity of Baby Yoda that is the greatest danger the galaxy faces. Now, I see what you're thinking. Oh, wait. Take a drink, I already stumbled. Now, I know what you're thinking. Baby Yoda can't be evil. He's too cute. How could something terrible with such wide-ranging brand appeal? Would anyone want to critically examine the motives of a character who makes such an adorable plushie? Really? He gotta put that in the fucking thing? But truly, the breakout star of The Mandalorian has a dark side. No shit. But exemplified by the latest episode. By the episode of the smash-hitting streaming series. In The Passenger, we've already talked about that. We meet a character imaginatively dubbed Frog Lady, which we have explained, whose impossible quest to transport her unfertilized eggs to her husband across dangerous space. So moves the Mandalorian, Pedro Pascal, that he risks it all to help her babies come to life. To do so, he flees New Public X-Wings, crashes through ice sheets, and battles off giant ice spiders. But in the background to his heroism, Baby Yoda's wicked actions bubble away. Immediately, in scenes played for laughs, the child begins to snack on the precious cargo. The woman's future offspring, her last chance to continue her genetic line. Her family's past, present, and future are nothing but an hors d'oeuvres to the ravenous, unfeeling Baby Yoda. This storyline continues throughout that episode, and has unsettled even the most slavish devotees of Baby Yoda. In fact, the show's makers ended up addressing the controversy online, desperately attempting to put a good spin on their cash cow's dark acts. For the record, Chapter 10 of #The Mandalorian makes it clear that the Frog Lady's eggs are unfertilized, like the chicken eggs many of us enjoy. Not me, because I'm allergic to chicken eggs. But obviously, chickens aren't sentient beings, and the child eating the eggs is intentionally disturbing. For comedic effect, #Star Wars, and blah blah blah. Which, at Phil Zostek explained November 9th of the last shit year. But in our heart of hearts, we all know the truth. That is that this is just the latest, the child's atrocities. Throughout the series, we've seen his raging ID and self-absorption when he put his protector in danger. For example, unleashing spiders on him in this episode by eating another creature's young. And it's harder and harder to attribute to all... take a drink, I stumbled. To attribute it all to misadventure. This is a character who, least we forget, in Season 1 choked the woman, Gina Carano's Cara Dune, for daring to intrude on his space. When Darth Vader does that, we rightly recognize his villainy. When it's Baby Yoda, we're quick to write it off as youthful hijinks. That's actually a pretty good assumption. I know what you'll say next. The child is, after all, a child. It can't be held responsible for his actions. He's carnivorous and non-lingual, meaning he doesn't talk, and will probably grow out of these habits. Personally, I have suspicions, says the person who wrote the thing. As revealed in the very first episode of The Mandalorian, the child isn't some babe in the woods. He's 50.
For a little shit, he's 50 years old? Something's wrong with that picture.
Shit, the regular fucking Yoda was what? The size of a freaking little guy?
Yeah, and he looked like he was older than Mother Earth.
He's older than the Mandalorian, in fact. And while within the series it's speculated that his relative immaturity is due to his species' long lifespan, as seen in actual grown Yoda, who has several centuries old in the Star Wars movies, we have to ask ourselves, how do we know this is actually true? After all, how on earth would a species evolve and survive when they're completely vulnerable and liable to capture for decades at a time? How do we know that Baby Yoda isn't faking the whole time for his own dark purposes? Think about it. The original Yoda's lovable, cuddly appearance was intentionally designed by George Lucas, and his team to belie the wise, powerful Jedi beneath. In the years since, fans have speculated that Yoda's equivalent in the dark side must exist. A comic, seemingly harmless character whose antics would later be revealed to more sinister than we ever could have believed. For years, most have assumed that it was intended to be Jar Jar Binks, who doesn't love a Darth Jar Jar theory. Oh, come on. That pun's really fucking stupid. But what if we'd arrived at the wrong wacky alien? What if the evil Yoda was more obviously just an evil Yoda, finally envisaged in The Mandalorian in the misleading form of a child? Famously, series creator Jon Favreau once noted The Mandalorian was inspired by the Game of Thrones. And what could be more Game of Thrones than a shock betrayal like this, or the heel turn of a previously beloved character, Denori's cough. Perhaps Moff Gideon. It's clear that the Mandalorian, the true grand villain of the whole affair, is the child. A Damien from the Omen-style threat who will turn against his allies sometime soon. Soon, the galaxy must band together to face off against the threat. I'm looking at a picture of Baby Yoda. And of course, this one ends, "Aw, but look at his little face." Okay, let's...
What are we throwing Looney Tunes references in?
I have no idea.
Look at the little face.
Okay, let's let him do it anyway. Do you want to overthrow the Republic, little one, do you? Okay then. The last bit of this is, "Death to the Jedi, long live the first Baby Yoda Empire." Can you get more stupid? Okay, that's it for that one. Let's see. More on The Mandalorian. The Mandalorian's armorer fight scene took over 400 takes to film. For example, Lauren Mary Kim, stunt double for the armorer in The Mandalorian, talks through the grueling process of shooting her season finale fight scene. According to the stunt performer, Kim was the double for actress Emily Swallow. During the memorable fight, when the fan favorite character single-handedly took out 5 stormtroopers in the span of about 20 seconds. Though the child, Baby Yoda, tends to dominate the spotlight, the Disney Plus Star Wars series The Mandalorian built up a colorful cast of characters across its first 8 episodes. And the Armorer is arguably the most intriguing of them. The leader of the protagonist, Din Djarin's tribe of Mandalorian warriors, the Armorer is a mix of wisdom, poise, and mystery, embodying the creed of her endangered religious order. After appearances in Chapter 1, The Mandalorian, and Chapter 3, The Sin, that establish her authority while revealing very little about her backstory, she returns in Chapter 8, Redemption, as the only member of Djarin's tribe left in their hideout. While there is hope that some escaped off-world, that makes no sense, most of her kinsmen were killed by Imperials after they gave away their position to ensure the Djarin's escape with the child. The fight scene Kim discussed in a YouTube video for Corridor Crew is the Armorer's last of the season. When audiences finally got a look at what the mysterious character is capable of, she describes it as one of the most difficult fights of her career, and with good reason. And here's what she explained. "That was probably one of the most strenuous fights I've ever had to do, because of the armor. In the helmet, it's a oneer. Basically, you can't take the helmet off, and you have to fight with it on. We never did it as pieces. We did the whole fight from top to bottom. I think we did it like 400 or 500 oneers. Or basically 400 or 500 times. Because we shot so many different angles. I died. Usually the stunt coordinator shoots pre-visual. They have an idea of how it should be edited, so they shoot towards the edit, which makes no sense. With The Mandalorian, they like to get a lot of different angles, so they can really choose and see which one is the best for each moment. They're very particular with what their look is, so that's why they shoot so many different angles. Kim praises second unit director Dave Filoni, whose background is with animated shows like Avatar, The Last Airbender, and Star Wars The Clone Wars, for wanting to capture every interesting moment of the sequence. Elsewhere in the discussion, she describes how the scene required positive contact, going against the usual stunt requirement not to land blows, and reports that the stormtrooper armor kept the other performers uninjured. Despite resisting motions and sightlines, she considers the Mandalorian armor pretty practical, and she gives a detailed breakdown, or gave a detailed breakdown, of how the armorer's fighting style is based around the Filipino martial art eskrima. More than just offering insight into how the Mandalorian approached fight scenes, this discussion with Kim highlights what works about this fight in particular. Fans of action movies and TV are well aware that filmmakers will often use cuts to cover up an actor's lack of skill, and the general consensus is that longer takes make far more exciting sequences. Would that be lack of skill? That'd be the bitch in Resident Evil who took the fucking role from me from the beginning of the fucking movie franchise. Who fucking sucked with the fucking director. For some, knowing that it was filmed in a series of single takes won't be enough, and they'd prefer to see it play out unbroken. But it came out looking impressive either way. And that's it for that one. Next. Mandalorian revealed a fan favorite character in Season 2, Episode 3. If I could get rid of the goddamn... There we go. Now, get off my fucking computer. Thank you. The Mandalorian's third episode of Season 2 revealed the fan favorite character and confirmed the pending appearance of another. Read on for spoilers, which, spoiler alert. Let's see. The adventure episode, The Harris, marked the introduction of Bo-Katan Kryze, a character of the animated series Star Wars The Clone Wars and Star Wars Rebels. Moreover, the episode take a drink, I stumbled, confirmed that another character from the animated shows, Ahsoka Tano, Rosario Dawson, would appear in the show as well. Bo-Katan is played by Katie Sackhoff, who was in Battlestar Galactica, who also voiced the character in the animated shows, marking a bit of rarity. A live-action character later voicing an animated version is common, but far less so for the originator of an animated character to carry over to live action. Sackhoff brought her character into the real world rather perfectly, with stilliness and commanding humor. Let's find out. Let's see, some background on the character. Bo-Katan is a Mandalorian warrior who was a lieutenant in Death Watch, a terrorist organization that opposed Mandalore's pacifist government during the Clone Wars. But then the group teamed with Darth Maul. Yep, he lived. Who that declared himself the leader of Mandalore, causing Bo-Katan to shift her alliance, or allegiance, in order to try and save her home. There's a lot more backstory after that, but the short version is Bo-Katan became essentially the leader of Mandalore, and eventually was given the dark saber, the black lightsaber now wielded by Moff Gideon, which she's searching for in the episode. The last fans saw of Bo-Katan was at the end of Rebels, which ended before the events of the original Star Wars trilogy. We also know at some point there was a battle between the Empire and Mandalore called the Great Purge. In the episode, we also learned that Mando is considered a child of the Watch, a cult of religious zealots, whose goal was to reestablish the ancient way, which is why Mando and his kind don't take off the helmets. Clearly, Mando isn't used to Mandalorians removing their helmets, and is essentially, and incorrectly, assumes that Bo-Katan and her troops are not real Mandalorians, when in fact she was born on Mandalore, and its Din Djarin was apparently unusual. Get off my screen, thank you. Fun facts: Bo-Katan's helmet design is inspired by a barn owl, and her character name was inspired by Mandalorian director and executive producer Dave Filoni's cat, nicknamed Bogey, plus Cat, plus his wife's name, Anne. Doesn't really give much of a description, but oh well. Let's see, get rid of that one. Okay, that's it for Mandalorian news. We're gonna talk some shit about Disney Plus. And I mean some shit. Everybody out there by now should already know Home Alone. I'm not talking bullshit Home Alone 3. Home Alone director calls Disney Plus's planned reboot of Home Alone a waste of time. And what's the point? Chris Columbus isn't on board for Disney Plus's planned reimagining of his beloved 1990 film Home Alone. The famed director, who has been behind the camera for some of Hollywood's iconic children's films, including the first two Harry Pothead films, The Goonies, which I do remember seeing his name in the credits as a director for that movie. I do have The Goonies, but I think I just heard someone just say, wait, isn't that a film that Corey Feldman was in as a kid? Yes! Of course, I might have to get the disc back, because the disc is all scratched up to hell from the move that when we came down here 6 years ago. Going on 7, April 3rd. And Mrs. Doubtfire, that, Robin Williams was in also, said he wasn't contacted by Disney Plus when it came to the planned reboot. Go figure. Nobody got in touch with me about it, and it's a waste of time as far as I'm concerned, he told Insider. What's the point? I'm a firm believer that you don't remake films that have had the longevity of Home Alone. He continued, You're not going to create lightning in a bottle again. It's just not going to happen. So why do it? It's like doing a paint-by-numbers version of a Disney animated film. A live-action version of that. What's the point? It's been done. Do your own thing. Even if you fare miserably at it, at least you have come up with something original. And he's got a major fucking point. Of course, go figure, Disney did not immediately respond to people's requests for comment. Go figure. Columbus also touched on the planned reimagining of the film called Stoned Alone, starring Ryan Reynolds. The film was in development at Fox before its merger with Disney in March 2019. God only knows what that will be. A stoner version of Home Alone? Said Columbus, listen, have fun. I just feel do something new. Life is short. Agreed. Wouldn't you agree, dear? In August 2019, former Disney president Bob Iger said the company's streaming site would be the home for several reimaginings of Disney classics such as Home Alone, Night at the Museum, Diary of a Wimpy Kid, and Cheaper by the Dozen. Which version? Those titles come from Fox's library, which Disney acquired after long negotiations. We're also focused on leveraging Fox's vast library of great titles to further enrich the content mix on our DTC platforms, Disney Plus and Hulu. Iger told reporters at the time, according to a report by Deadline, we see great long-term value in the broad collection of theatrical IP we acquired from Fox. Columbus reflected on the significance of Home Alone, telling Insider the film has become an integral part of pop culture, which is true, because it has an emotional connection with people. It does. Sure, people love to laugh and it's fun, but it's centered on a specific time of the year when people are hopeful and happy, he said. I think it's the perfect movie for people to sit around the living room with your entire family and watch it. And that's it for that one. Let's see. Last of our entertainment part of Para News here. Beetlejuice stagehand fell to his death inside Broadway Theater. The 34-year-old was removing props from the now shuttered musical when he fell from scaffolding inside Broadway's Winter Garden Theater and died Thursday morning. That Thursday morning. The stagehand was taking down the set from the show Beetlejuice, according to the New York Post, in order to begin putting up props for the next show, The Music Man, featuring Hugh Jackman. Police said he fell 50 feet, at around 9:30 in the morning at the theater, located at 7th Avenue near West 50th Street. Of course, his name was not released. A statement from the Schubert organization, which owns the theater, said at 8:45 a.m. Thursday morning, November 12th, a stagehand fell from the fly floor above the stage at the Winter Garden and died from injuries sustained. Most likely that freaking theater's haunted. The statement continued, NYPD and OSHA arrived at the scene to conduct investigation into the circumstances of the accident. We mourn the loss of our valued colleague. Sure you do. Our heartfelt condolences go out to the family at the difficult time. Last month, Broadway theaters announced they would remain shut down until May 2021 this year because of the shit still going on. With nearly 97,000 workers who rely on Broadway for their livelihood, and an annual economic impact of $14.8 billion to the city, our membership is committed to reopening as soon as conditions permit us to do so. Broadway League President Charlotte St. Martin said in a statement at the time, we are working tirelessly with multiple partners on sustaining the industry once we raise our curtains again. That has to suck. Now, we're done with paraculture entertainment news. We are going to get into some stuff that are strange. And yes, I checked to make sure the emails worked, and they were actually still in my email box. This Air Force jet was scrambled to intercept the UFO, but then disappeared without a trace. Let's see. It's a stormy night. It's a stormy November evening in 1953. It's somewhere in North America's Great Lakes region. Would that be around Michigan? An unexpected object has just appeared on a U.S. Air Force radar screen. So officials dispatched 2 airmen to take a closer look and hopefully get to the bottom of this eerie mystery. But as the pair approached the anomaly aboard their aircraft, something truly unbelievable happens. And even decades on, the truth of the matter is murky. First Lieutenant Felix Magla was one of the men who took to the skies to investigate the unidentified flying object. And he wasn't exactly wet behind the ears either. Moncla was stationed at Truax Air Force Base in Madison, Wisconsin. And by November 1953, he'd clocked more than 800 hours of flying time. Come on, get off my screen. There we go. So Moncla, superiors may have been confident that he'd succeed in his mission. On board a craft known as the F-89 Scorpion, the airman and second lieutenant Robert Wilson set off in pursuit of the unknown object, and before long, they began to close in thousands of feet above the dark waters of the lake. But what happened next continues to defy explanation. Yes, it sparked a mystery that endures to this day. Oh, no shit, Sherlock. Simply put, Moncla, Wilson, and their aircraft disappeared without a trace. It was a tragedy that their superiors struggled to explain. And over the years, the military has given wildly different accounts of what happened that fateful night. Go figure. Is it the work of a government conspiracy covering up the truth about a terrifying alien encounter? Or is the truth something a little more ordinary? This is some fucking X-Files shit. Well, let's first judge the facts. The story began on the evening of November 23rd, 1953, at an Air Defense Command facility on the border between Canada and the U.S. The conditions weren't exactly great for a mission either. According to some reports, snow was falling, while other sources state that the weather was stormy. But whatever the truth, something unexpected occurred in the region just after 6 p.m. At around the time, an operator detected something unusual on the radar. Traveling through restricted airspace, an unknown entity appeared to be nearing the commercial hub of Solax of the southeastern shore of Lake Superior. And most bafflingly of all, there were no American or Canadian craft cleared to be in the area at the time. So the question is, was this a UFO? Officials were puzzled. Anyway. And so they scrambled an F-89 Scorpion jet that was temporarily stationed at Kinross Air Force Base, around 20 miles from Solax. Normally, this plane was based 400 miles away from Truax Air Force Base, although ultimately would never make the journey back down south. Come on. Thank you. Stop fucking up. Thank you. Anyway, when the aircraft was relocated, Moncla and Wilson made the journey to Michigan. Okay, so I was right. And the first lieutenant, a man with over 120 hours experience flying planes, just like this one, was in the pilot's seat. Initially on track to be a doctor, the 27-year-old had abandoned a career in medicine to join the military 3 years previously. On the evening of November 23rd, however, Moncla set off in search of the mysterious object, and with Wilson manning the radar equipment, the two were soon in hot pursuit. But the second lieutenant still struggled to keep track of the unknown craft, which appeared to dart swiftly from place to place. Thankfully, a radar operator on the ground was on hand to assist Moncla and Wilson as they gave chase. The operator watched the screen as one blip followed the other in a high-altitude game of cat and mouse. Not something you want to play when you're in a fucking jet.
Tom and Jerry.
Slowly descending from 25,000 feet to just 7,000 feet. Then finally, it looked as though the F-89 was gaining ground. Come on. Thank you. At a point some 70 miles off the Keweenaw Peninsula, on the southern shore of the lake, Moncla and Wilson's jet caught up with the unknown object. By that time, the airmen had tracked the unidentified craft for some 160 miles. But just as the mystery was about to be solved, something happened that no one could have predicted. According to witness reports, the two blips on the radar somehow locked together as one. Local Madison paper, the Capital Times, later tried to make sense of this bizarre occurrence, publishing an article that explained the Truax jet was followed on the radar screen at Kinross until its image merged with that of the plane that was tracking. I've never heard of a freaking air jet merging. After that, Moncla and Wilson's jet seemed to disappear into thin air. Later, an official report would note that the F-89's radar signal had simply vanished. And, if that wasn't strange enough, the blip representing the unknown craft veered off course before also dropping out of sight. But, while the situation was baffling, there was an obvious next step. The U.S. military therefore launched a search and rescue operation to track down the missing airmen. Naturally, there was an extensive search of the area by both boat and plane, but rather incredibly, no sign of Moncla and Wilson or their F-89 was ever found. Both men, along with their jet, seemed to have completely disappeared off the face of the earth. So what exactly happened to the experienced pilot and his second in command is the question. Okay, come on. Well, as the U.S. Air Force had to give some form of explanation, an official press release was quickly fired off to the Associated Press. This included details that purportedly explained what happened to the moments leading up to the disappearance. The F-89 was followed by radar until it merged with an object 70 miles off Keweenaw Point in Upper Michigan. The statement read. However, it wasn't long before those in charge began to backtrack on that story. Come on. Thank you. In a second statement, released shortly after the first statement, the U.S. Air Force retracted its initial claims. This time, officials downplayed the mystery. Oh, go figure. Instead, claiming that the radar operator had been mistaken. That sounds like a fucking cover-up if I ever heard one. Now, the party line was that Moncla and Wilson had actually completed their mission, successfully intercepting the unidentified object. Then why did they just vanish? And their families have no idea. According to this second statement, the object was identified by Moncla and Wilson as a C-47 aircraft, also known as a Dakota, that belonged to the Royal Canadian Air Force. Ooh, not something you want to blame Canada for. Allegedly, this craft had wandered some 30 miles off course, neatly explaining its unexpected appearance and restricted airspace. It was also claimed that the American airmen had only encountered trouble after their run-in with the other plane. Come on. Oh, come on. Don't tell me the batteries are starting to go. Apparently, Moncla had been stricken by a fit of vertigo while returning to Kinross Air Force Base. And this medical emergency had then caused him to crash the jet into Lake Superior. But it wasn't long before holes began to appear in this version of events too. Over in Canada, officials pointed out that none of their planes had been in the vicinity at the time of the incident. Don't try to blame Canada, because they will make you look stupid. After that, events grew murkier still. According to UFO researcher Donald Kehoe, that's his last name, Kehoe, who wrote 2 books about the bizarre story. Moncla's widow was visited by a couple of different representatives of the U.S. Air Force. One of these individuals is said to have claimed that the pilot had been flying at an incorrect altitude. But this was to relieve the plane's proximity to the lake had been the ultimate cause of the fatal crash. Curiously enough, though, the second representative told Moncla's widow a completely contradictory story. Go figure. In this version of events, the F-89 had exploded high in the air above Lake Superior. And in the midst of all this confusion, a rumor began to emerge. Had the airmen perhaps encountered something out of this world? Now that theory may sound ridiculous on the surface, but for years, Moncla and Wilson's disappearance remained a mystery. The whereabouts of their ill-fated plane were completely unknown too. And while reports emerged in 1968 that some wreckage, possibly belonging to a military jet, had been discovered on Lake Superior's eastern shore, nobody has been able to verify those claims. Think the freaking batteries and the freaking mouse is starting to die, because it's giving me a hard time. So what really happened to Moncla and Wilson that fateful night? Well, Kehoe had his own suggestion. In his book, The Flying Saucer Conspiracy, That's a little long for a fucking book title. The writer speculated about the true cause of the airman's disappearance. And as you may have already guessed, Kehoe surmised that the missing F-89 had been in pursuit of an alien craft. And let's see, is this going to work for me now? Here we go. Kehoe, himself a former Marine Corps aviator, recalled hearing a rumor at around the time that Moncla and Wilson had disappeared. Apparently, the story was that an F-89 from Kinross was hit by a flying saucer. When he investigated further, however, he received a different explanation. As the U.S. Air Force had asserted, a Canadian plane, not an alien craft, had been the catalyst for the incident. Despite this, some still believe that a UFO had somehow been involved in Moncla and Wilson's disappearance. Adding fuel to the fire, Kehoe allegedly obtained a copy of an official Air Force document regarding the case. And this evidence was compelling, reportedly including an interview with a witness who'd watched the incident play out on radar. The unnamed witness is claimed to have said, "It seems incredible, but the blip apparently just swallowed our F-89. Yet, that wasn't all. Later, Kehoe alleged to have take a drink and stubbled. Alleged to have discussed the incident with members of Project Blue Book, the official U.S. Air Force team dedicated to researching UFOs, and apparently individuals belonging to this special unit explained that the 1953 case was just one of the many similar mysterious events. According to Kehoe, some of those at Project Blue Book also believed that UFOs were extraterrestrial craft visiting Earth. Again, I said on the last episode, why the fuck would aliens want to come down here? Be that as it may, the team's official report on what's been dubbed the Kinross incident continued to toe the line. Moncla and Wilson, the document stated, had perished in a crash. And there was no mention of any alien involvement. But the plot would thicken when researchers of the National Investigations Committee on Aerial Phenomenon and ICAP made yet another alarming discovery. Allegedly, the group contacted Aerospace Technical Intelligence Center only for the organization to deny that the Kinross incident had ever happened. According to reports, officials at the center claimed There is no record in the Air Force files of any sighting at Kinross AFB on November 23rd, 1953. There is no case in the files which even closely parallels these circumstances. Perhaps understandably, this evasiveness did little to quell suspicion surrounding the incident. And before long, amateur UFO hunters, go figure, began to come up with their own ideas about what had happened to Moncla and Wilson's jet. For example, maybe the two airmen have been abducted by the very craft that they've been tracking. Fucking... Okay, come on. Next. Thank you. In this theory, the F-89 had been picked up mid-air by the object, an alien craft. Some even went as far as to speculate on the perhaps behind such an abduction. Perhaps they reasoned the extraterrestrials wished to use Moncla and Wilson to brush up on their English skills. Okay, that's just the person saying that, basically showing they're idiots. Then there was the suggestion that the strange vision in the sky had been a UFO protected by some kind of force field. When Moncla and Wilson's F-89 unwittingly flew into the object, then, and it would have been like hitting a solid wall. So maybe the jet really had crashed, but not because the pilot error. As the years have passed by, however, Moncla and Wilson's disappearance has remained a mystery. And although the case continues to attract attention, neither official nor amateur investigators have been able to uncover the truth. Oh, no shit. But, naturally, that hasn't stopped users on forums such as Reddit from speculating about the strange incident. In one Reddit post, a user linked the disappearance to the mystery of the Great Lakes Triangle, an anomaly similar to the Bermuda Triangle. This region has allegedly seen a number of boats and planes vanish in strange circumstances over the years. It's been said that there are high levels of iron ore in the area's rocks, causing navigation equipment to go disastrously wrong. Unfortunately, though, there is a flaw to that theory. You see, the Great Lakes Triangle is traditionally located in Lake Michigan, some 250 miles south from where Moncla and Wilson disappeared. And if malfunctioning navigation equipment had indeed caused the crash, what was the other blip that had appeared on the radar at Kinross Air Force Base? That is a question. Elsewhere, another commenter offered up a more prosaic explanation for the incident. They had put forward the claim that the F-89 was a tweak-and-go model that had involved a lot of trial and error and fallen prey to a number of fatal accidents. Perhaps, the Redditor reasoned, Moncla and Wilson had been the victims of a more predictable crash. Well, while this explanation may seem a logical one, it doesn't account for the origin of the mysterious blip on the radar screen. And although the Reddit user suggested that such signals can be caused by more mundane objects such as a flock of birds, a trained operator should have been able to tell the difference between avian life and an unknown craft. That's a good point. What do you think, dear?
I think it's sketchy.
Yeah. However, as both UFO enthusiasts and skeptics continued to speculate online, there was another interesting development in the case. In 2006, a Canadian newspaper called the Pembroke Observer published a detailed article about the Kinross incident, calling it one of the most enduring mysteries of the Great Lakes. Then, soon after that, Francis Ridge, a prominent researcher of flying saucers, received this strange email. Come on. Click on it. Thank you. Reportedly, the email contained a snippet of text purporting to be from a news story, allegedly released by the Associated Press. The article announced that Moncla and Wilson's jet had been found at the bottom of Lake Superior by his team of divers. There was also a link to the website of the group responsible, the Great Lakes Dive Company, within the message. Oops. And as news of the apparent discovery began to spread, a spokesperson for the group named Adam Jimenez gave interviews to reporters. Underwater photographs published by the Great Lakes Dive Company's website appeared to support its claims too. Then the story took an elaborate turn. Supposedly, the divers had also discovered wreckage of a UFO alongside the remains of the F-89. For the UFO enthusiasts who'd been tracking the Kinross incident, this development must have seemed too good to be true. And usually if something's too good to be true, it usually is. And alas, it seems that indeed it was. As researchers continued to dig into the story, it quickly fell apart. Apparently, there was no evidence that the Great Lakes Dive Company had ever existed. Before long, Jimenez disappeared too. Shocking. Leading most observers to conclude that the discovery had been a hoax. Since then, there have been no new leads on Moncla and Wilson's disappearance. And so the world is no closer to knowing what happened above Lake Superior that stormy night. But there could still be a twist in the tale. In 2020, last year's shit sandwich, the Pentagon reignited the conversation about UFOs by releasing previously classified footage featuring unknown aerial phenomena. There's your cue, dear.
Do 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 do.
Phenomena.
Do 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 do.
Phenomena.
Do 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 do.
So, could some top secret files in government archives hold the key to the truth about the Kinross incident? Only time will tell on that one. It's up to you to decide whether the two men were abducted by an alien aircraft. Until they discover the truth, anyway. If you're a bona fide skeptic, though, you may be surprised to hear that a real-life flying saucer actually exists. Yes, you've read that correctly. And elaborating, you heard that correctly. In August 2019, sensational footage of an actual flying saucer was uploaded to YouTube. And understandably went viral. This real-life UFO looks every bit the sci-fi staple, after all, and is supposedly capable of flying in all directions while pulling off incredible speeds and expert maneuvers. That would be an Independence Day. But even though this man-made craft, I'm going to repeat that again, man-made craft might look ready to explore the universe, that's not exactly what its creators have in mind. The disc, officially known as an all-directions flying object, ADIFO, is the invention of engineer Razvan Zabi and aerodynamicist Losiv Tupazo. Tupazo, who are both from Romania. So I actually said that name right. The latter definitely has the chops for this sort of project too. And his resume, if his resume is anything to go by, once a senior scientist at Romania's National Institute for Aerospatial Research, Tapuso is now in fact head of theoretical aerodynamics at the National Aviation Institute. Yet, it was Zabi who, in August 2019, explained the work that went into the ADIFO in an interview with Vice. The engineer said, "The aerodynamics behind this aircraft is the result of more than 2 decades of work and is very well reasoned in hundreds of pages and confirmed by computer simulations and wind tunnel tests. And as we mentioned earlier, there's now even footage to prove it." The YouTube clip, uploaded by the account Tech World, actually shows the flying saucer hovering and performing vertical takeoffs. And according to the ADIFO's inventors, the inspiration behind a recognizable design wasn't done to mimic UFOs. Rather, it was more organic origins. Yet, it's hard to ignore the fact that the disc will now join the eye-opening history of alien-like crafts on planet Earth. Amazingly, UC UFO sightings have been recorded since the time of ancient Egypt. Yes, there's actually a Thule papyrus transcription that claims a pharaoh of the 18th dynasty called Thutmose III, the Third, had seen fiery discs hovering in the skies. And what's more, at least 5 original sightings were also recorded during the Roman era. Isn't there alcohol? Wasn't there fucking wine back then in fucking Egypt? It had to have been. The alleged UFO sightings during Roman times included airborne craft spotted in the skies above Rome in 218 BC, and a silvery object shaped like a storage jar hovering above what is now Turkey. Now, between the 16th and 19th centuries, several instances of aerial phenomenon phenomena
Yeah!
were recorded in sites located everywhere from the US to Japan. And in the following century, the claims began to stack up. In fact, UFO sightings really started to pick up in the 1940s, during World War II. Some Allied pilots even described seeing circular glowing objects in their vicinities during the conflict's aerial battles. A number of them apparently observed the fiery globes, while others claimed that they came across orange, white, or red orbs. But, according to the eyewitnesses, these things weren't just floating there. You see, the airmen claimed that these Foo Fighters, not the band, as the unidentified objects were called, seemed to be flying with the Allied pilots. The UFOs reportedly even dashed around completing wild maneuvers and then simply disappeared. Witnesses further said that the supposed UFOs appeared to be intelligently controlled, but never hostile. And these events paved the way for a decades-long run of sightings. And that was Parent Mike's cell phone just flying off the shelf by itself. In 1947, for instance, the term flying saucer accidentally came into being after a reported UFO sighting in the skies above Washington. Kenneth Arnold, who was out piloting his private plane at the time, said that he had seen a group of around 9 crescent-shaped craft flying at the speed of several thousand miles an hour. You can't clock a speed that high, that fast, on the fucking ground. Depending on what fucking sensor you got for clocking fucking speed. Like saucers skipping on water. Basically like saucers skipping on water. Or rocks skipping. Then, in a subsequent newspaper article, the UFOs were erroneously described as saucer-shaped, and the name was born.
the word saucer's been around for ages.
Yeah.
Way before the alien spacecrafts, UFOs, were even called saucers.
I know.
They got that way back when people was dressed up in, colonial clothes.
Yeah. Give me a refill. Yet, soon after the Washington incident came possibly the most famous of all UFO sightings. This time, though, the alleged alien aircraft was discovered after having supposedly crashed. Found by W. Mac Brazil, a local rancher, the wreckage lay close to a military base in the New Mexico town of Roswell. I'm going to say that again. Military base in the New Mexico town of Roswell. What was left of the craft was reportedly 600 feet long, but could it have been a real UFO? Well, the newspaper subsequently reported the wreckage near Roswell airfield was an alien aircraft, though the U.S. military disagreed. Go figure. According to an official statement, in fact, the craft was nothing more than a downed weather balloon. Photographs of the wreckage printed in the paper seem to contradict that stance. However, and it would be decades before the truth finally came to light. 50 years after the discovery of the wreckage in Roswell, you see, the U.S. military finally came clean about its purpose. It turned out that the craft had been built for Project Mongol, or Moogle. A classified operation aiming to collect information about Soviet nuclear testing. This had been done by attaching microphones capable of detecting sound waves from atomic explosions to high-altitude balloons. And while Project Moogle had some success, the cost, along with the introduction of air sampling methods and seismic detectors, had led to it being shut down. But this explanation obviously came too late to stop the flow of conspiracy theories that surrounded the Roswell incident. Only a few years later, for instance, another event pushed the UFO debate to the forefront again. Yes, alien conspiracies increased, following another alleged sighting in Roswell in the 1950s. This time, though, witnesses claimed to have seen bodies with aluminum bones and latex skin falling from the sky. So had extraterrestrials actually landed in New Mexico? Well, probably not. Yet for some, those supposed alien bodies in the desert in New Mexico were indeed proof of extraterrestrial existence. And the military's hasty retrieval of them only fed rumors of a government cover-up. So, for those who didn't believe the explanation for the 1947 Roswell wreckage, this latest incident only further convinced them of an otherworldly presence on the planet. But the military had a very different explanation for the strange occurrence. The official response was that the bodies were not alien corpses, but were in fact dummies. It was also claimed that these mannequins were used to discover whether pilots could survive falling from planes. But this explanation did little to quell the enthusiasm for all things extraterrestrial, and sightings continued to increase. And it seems that even the U.S. military itself wasn't immune to the UFO mania. In 1948, after all, the U.S. Air Force decided to investigate the phenomena of unidentified flying objects. But with the Cold War now, with the Cold War in full swing then, the government had very different theories for what the crafts were. Inevitably, then, the U.S. military had only one likely explanation as far as UFOs were concerned. It wasn't aliens. For them, the source of the flying saucers was clear. It was the Soviet Union. This Cold War foe was the government believed sending sophisticated aircraft to gather data on America. Yet, clearly, any identified aircraft flying in the U.S. is a worry. So in 1948, Project Sign came into being. Its aim was to test the belief of the UFOs that the UFOs were indeed Soviet spy planes. There were, however, some researchers who reportedly thought it was entirely possible that aliens were behind the flying saucers. And that's why the so-called extraterrestrial hypothesis was also put to the test. Project Sign then became Project Grudge. And in 1952, the investigation was replaced by Project Blue Book. Under this new moniker, in fact, the study would go on to become the longest-running official inquiry into UFOs. Lasting nearly 2 decades, the probe showed just how seriously the issue was taken at the time. Between 1952 and 1969, for instance, Project Blue Book assembled over 12,000 reported UFO sightings. And after investigations, those claims were then placed into one of 2 categories: identified or unidentified. The former category included reports that could be explained by man-made, atmospheric, or astronomical events. That latter classification, though, was for the 6% of sightings for which there was no apparent explanation. God damn it. There we go. And let's see. Around the time that Project Blue Book got off the ground, though, the U.S. government decided to launch its own UFO probe. In 1953, you see a panel consisting of an astronomer, multiple physicists, and a rocket scientist convened to investigate the extraterrestrial phenomena. The group that spent 3 days looking at Project Blue Book's results, interviewing military personnel, and reviewing photographs and films supposedly showing UFOs. The panel concluded that the reported sightings, around 90% in fact, were easily explainable. These reports were attributed to, among other things, ion clouds, bright planets, meteors, planes, balloons, and lights. The panel also reasoned that the extraterrestrial hypothesis therefore had no support in evidence. These conclusions, however, did little to dampen UFO fever, and in 1966, the U.S. military requested another government review in order to further analyze Project Blue Book's findings. This time, though, the committee spent 2 years looking at its conclusions, fielding 37 researchers to intensely study 59 specific sightings. Despite the interest in these cases, though, the committee found again that the UFO sightings were the result of everyday phenomena. They also recommended no further investigation into the reports. And these findings, coupled with a reduction in alleged sightings, led to Project Blue Book's closure in 1969. Sorry folks, these goddamn ads. The official closure of Project Blue Book doesn't see the end of UFO investigations, though. That's because private citizens took up the cause instead. And one of them, J. Allen Hynek, once a scientist of the government committee, set up the Center for UFO Studies in 1973. Yet while that Chicago-based organization continues its probes, 2 European scientists have been building their own flying saucer. So as we've touched upon, the 80 IFO craft might look like a UFO, but its design actually has a far more organic origin. The circular shape is, in fact, based on an airfoil, a fin located on a dolphin's back that helps the mammal glide through water. This design, therefore, gives the saucer ability to safely move between supersonic speeds, the engineers claim, and lowers the chance of shockwaves on the surface of the disk. But the advantages reportedly don't stop there. The ID-AFO is also incredibly agile, boasts a pair of jet engines, and operates like a quadcopter, thanks to the 4 ducted fans on the bottom that launch the craft into the air. And according to its inventors, the 80 IFO's unique shape means it is well placed to achieve supersonic speeds without the usual sonic boom that accompanies moving faster than the speed of light. Come on. People probably wondering, what does this have to do with the article? It has everything to do with it. According to the video uploaded to YouTube, the ADIFO could also be used for military purposes. In the clip, you see the narrator explains it can be used as an unmanned aerial vehicle, unmanned combat aerial vehicle, or even a fighter aircraft, due to its maneuverability and very low rate of signature. And if the ADIFO really can quietly transition to supersonic speeds, it could become the ideal craft for espionage too. The ADIFO team have also argued that it could become a manned craft. If future manufacturers were to install a jet and an electronic hybrid propulsion, however you want to fucking pronounce it, system into it. But it isn't just these Romanian scientists who are looking into the military applications for such a plane. In 2017, the United States Navy was granted a patent for a new aircraft that could supposedly perform many actions that ADIFO's plane claims to do. Plus, the Navy's craft can also supposedly fly underwater and in space. The craft will also have enhanced stealth capabilities, according to the patent application. The patent filing further stated that the plane will be enclosed in a vacuum plasma bubble sheath. The UK newspaper Metro added that the craft features a cavity while filled with gas, which is then made to vibrate using powerful electromagnetic waves. This then creates a vacuum around the craft, allowing it to propel itself at high speeds. But how any of this works in reality remains to be seen. Just because a design has been granted a patent doesn't mean it has been built and tested yet. And if you think all of this sounds bizarre, you are not alone. As Nick Pope, ex-UFO investigator for the British government, told Metro in April 2019, it's sometimes hard to tell whether the boundary lies between fringe science and science fiction. Given that there is other research into cloaking, warp drives, and anti-gravity measures, it's hard to disagree. Pope continued, not the Pope, but Pope in article here, continued, even if the theoretical physics turns out to be sound, aeronautical engineers will still have to build something of this patent is to have any tangible effect. If they have built the technology described in the patents, I'm sure the program is highly classified. the bottom line is that if any of this works, they're in game-changing territory. This isn't the first time that the U.S. government has tried to build its own UFO-style aircraft, however. Believe it or not, during the 1950s, the U.S. military actually commissioned a flying saucer-inspired ship that was hoped to become as ubiquitous. I'm butchering this fucking thing. Ubiquitous as the Jeep. And as U.S. policymakers held the project, which hoped to be utilized to transport troops in high regard at the time. The website Messy Nessie Chick.
What a name.
Even claimed that when Air Force Dynamics Lab engineer Bernard Leidenbaum approached Washington to request funding for improvements to helicopters, he was told that research into those craft would soon cease. In the future, Leidenbaum was apparently informed the military would run on this new form of transport known as the Avrocar. The Avrocar was the brainchild of British engineer Jack Frost. That's a fucking winter phrase. It began life in the 1950s, in the early 1950s, working for the Special Projects Department of Aircraft Manufacturer, Afro Canada. Frost actually managed to convince the U.S. military that not only was this travel by flying saucer theoretically possible, but that he could also make it a reality. However, the two craft that he subsequently built didn't quite work the way that they should have done. Despite the teething issues, though, the Avrocar was ready for testing in 1959. And while the craft did indeed leave the ground, it didn't get any higher than about 3 feet. Not an ideal altitude for a flying vehicle. According to those piloting the Avrocar, the heat in the cockpit was also unbearable, and its top speed was just 35 miles per hour. But the problems didn't end there, because the Avrocar also emitted a horrific screeching sound while in operation. Unsurprisingly then, in 1961, funding for the project stopped. One of the planes later ended up at the Cold War Gallery in the National Museum of the United States Air Force, while the other was apparently put in storage by the military in 2002. So, as we've seen, flying saucer-style aviation is still a work in progress, and yet the engineers behind the ADIFO project in Romania are bullish about their prototype, with Savvy telling Wired magazine that it's the peak of the iceberg. He added that 2 government entities, venture funds, 1 large aircraft manufacturer, and at least 10 possible partners have expressed interest in the technology. But with the U.S. military hot on their heels, with similar aircraft of its own, time will tell who will present the first fully functioning UFO-styled planes to the world. And that's it. Wait. Yep, that's it. I'm going to take a break because I'm a little bit winded. Paramike's going to take over for a little bit and do some urban legend stuff, while I'm going to follow along so I can know exactly where he's at. Okay, go ahead, dear.
Fix my stuff. I was actually trying to set up a video.
Huh?
I was working on setting up a video for our show.
Oh.
That's why it took me just a little bit longer to get into here.
Well,
alright. Urban Legends! Yay! We're going to start off with The Watcher. This was done January 17th, 2018.
I'm looking at what looks like either a coin or a fucking doorknob.
Or a picture on the door itself. Who knows? A little girl had discovered her, a small figure carved on a wooden plank hanging on the kitchen wall. The girl stood there, awestruck, studying the image. I don't know how many people study images anymore. Etched on the wood, in lines and knots, was a lady in a gown, standing with gray hair flowing down to her shoulders and watching something open, mouthed, and eyes rounded, as if surprised and upset by what she is watching. The child had run to a nearby room and dragged him to the kitchen to show him her discovery. Well, let's see. I'm looking at the picture. I don't see the mouth wide open. I don't see the eyes.
Well, the eyes are open.
Yeah, the eyes are open, but we don't know what it's looking at. And it looks...
Her hair's not on her fucking shoulders.
No.
I mean, the outfit she's wearing, it could symbolize as a gown.
It's colonial, I know that. But yet it looks like her hair's snakes.
Well, curly, actually.
Yeah, but if you look at the two first points, they look like snakes.
Yeah, I know.
Where was I? Oh. As a young man, he was not as surprised as the child, but he took note of the unusual design nevertheless. This was the child's home. Had she never seen this piece of art before? Indeed, it looked like a creepy lady watching.
Yeah.
I wonder what she's watching. Watching you? Or watching something else?
Or watching something. But if I saw a face within that face looking at me, I wouldn't freak out. I would have been like, what the fuck you looking at?
Yeah. Take a picture, it'll last longer. Oh wait, they don't have cameras back then. He was a friend of this family. Her parents had gone on an errand, leaving the little daughter under his watch. Minutes after being shown the discovery, he murdered the girl in the kitchen as the carved lady on the wall stood watching, terrified and dumbstruck.
What a douchebag. He's burning to hell.
Shit, he probably already has.
Huh?
He probably already has. Is not there in hell anymore.
Oh, he's still there, probably.
A year later, the wall and the house were no more. first mortgaged and then sold. Everything that could be salvaged was sold as scrap, including the wooden plank with the lady carved on it. 5 years later, he bought a house in another place hundreds of miles away from where he ended that child. He married a lovely woman who desperately adored him. The second night in their new home, she discovered a plank discarded in a dusty corner of the attic. She brought it down into the house and set it in their bedroom so she wouldn't forget to show her husband after work that day. Absently, she hung it on an old hook near the bed so as not to get dust on the bedclothes. Bedclothes?
Basically the covers.
Oh, okay. I'm thinking bedclothes. I'm thinking pajamas. PJs. Walk around in your birthday suit drawers. She mentioned it to him that night and made him take note of the design. Viewing the image rang a faint bell. I think I've seen something like that before, in quotations. Mm-hmm. He said, but shortly went on loving his wife, not wanting to focus his brain, or his amoeba, on anything less important. Yeah, everything's important in life. Later that night, he woke up from sleep, restless. That doesn't make sense. In the faint light with his wife sleeping beside him, his eyes fell on the artwork. The lady was watching. Even in the semi-darkness of the room, he could see her clearly. She seemed to be watching him with more and more intensity. He remembered. She woke up in the morning when a drop of liquid fell on her face. A drop of red. She didn't find him beside her. Another drop fell. She looked up. It was dripping from above. Blood. Or in this case, she froze in panic and called out to him as she ran up to the attic. The quiet neighborhood street was disturbed by her blood-curdling scream.
We need to get some sound effects for that.
Yeah. Later, neighbors consoled her as police carried a body bag out of the house. Wow. And this came from Oregon. I'm surprised I remember what OR stands for. Normally it's operating room. But Oregon's the same way. 3 wells of Emily James.
Amelia.
Whatever. Emily, Amelia, same thing. This was from December 16th, 2017. My mom used to tell my friends this story at our sleepovers. It went something like this. In 1914, there was a small family living in the woods near here. The family was very rich. Snobby bastards. The daughter, Amelia James, was a beautiful singer, and her mother was always jealous of her. Oh, what's wrong, bitch? Your daughter's doing better than you did? When the father was called to war, go figure, they quickly began to lose money. The mother, who was very greedy, gold-digging bitch, and did not want to spend the money on her daughter, told her daughter to go down the hill and followed the train tracks west until she came upon 3 wells. I wonder how far that is from where they were living. She instructed her daughter to get water from the furthest well. The girl did as she was told and walked to the tracks, followed them west, and came upon the wells. As she was headed towards the wells, she wondered why she would get water from the furthest one. She approached the closest well and peered inside to see perfectly clear, cold water. She walked further and came upon the middle well and peered inside and again to see perfectly clear, cold water. She continued on and finally the girl approached the last well. When she peered in, the water was clean and cold, but it was too low for her to reach. Okay, she's at the lowest. She's at the well with no water that she can't reach. There you go. While she was leaning into the well to collect the water in her bucket, her mother jumped from behind a shrub, or in this case, a bush, and pushed her into the well. The girl did not know that her mother had run through the woods and was hiding within the bush or brush besides the furthest well and planned to kill her daughter all along. Several years later, 2 friends of mine and I were fooling around and we came across some abandoned train tracks, and we followed them west, back towards my house. After a few minutes, we heard what sounded like singing very distantly. La 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 la. Can't believe I just fucking did that. Holy shit. As we continued, it got steadily louder. We came to a huge wall of brush, and suddenly the singing stopped. La 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 la. I suddenly realized that I had no idea where we were, only that the way home must have been through the brush. When we had managed to find a thin area and struggled through it, we saw 3 wells. The youngest of my friends suddenly walked toward the closest well and peered in. She stared into the well for what seemed like forever. My other friend, who was older than I, started walking towards the middle well. I ran past her and looked at the other well, the last one, after what felt like centuries. I realized that I was slowly walking towards the last well. I could faintly hear la 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 singing very quietly. No more than a whisper. Yeah. When I was less than a foot from the well, I could smell something so foul it was nauseating. And the singing had turned to grueling or growling. Gurgling, thank you. Words are hard. I took one more step and looked down into the well, and the water was murky and green, with hair floating on the surface and delicately painted fingernails barely visible under the water. As I reached my hand down towards the water, why the fuck would you do that in the first place? Just before I could reach the drowning hands, I felt myself being pulled back away from the well. My parents' crying faces were all blurs as I was being hauled being hauled away by police officers. Well, where the fuck did they come in from?
Don't know.
That's kind of odd. Later, I discovered that my friends had thrown themselves into the wells and that their screams had alerted nearby hunters who called the police. Oh, okay, well, that's that one. Later, after inspecting the wells, they found that the other 2 wells had been completely drained and were filled with the bones of several animals and children. The furthest well was still filled with dirty water. When they drained it, they found the bodies of 14 drowned girls and the long dead remains of the forgotten singer Amelia James. And that comes from Oklahoma. That's nuts. What's this one? She was pushed. They hurt her. A girl named Carmen Winstead. Kind of a weird way to start a story for a title. This was 2015, October 25th for this story. About 6 years ago in Indiana, I'll go figure, Carmen Winstead was pushed down a sewer opening by 5 girls in her school, trying to embarrass her in front of her school during a fire drill. When she didn't submerge, the police were called. They went down and brought up 17-year-old Carmen Winstead's body. Her neck broke, hitting the ladder, then side concrete at the bottom. That doesn't make sense. The girls told everyone she fell. They believed them. Well, go figure. I want to believe one fucking high school cunt if I had to.
Fact 2.
Fact number 2. Or no, fact. 2 months ago, 16-year-old David Gregory read this report and didn't repost it. When he went to take a shower, he heard laughter from his shower. He started freaking out and ran to his computer to repost it. Really? You didn't want to repost it.
Yeah.
You take a shower, you hear laughter from your shower, you freak out, and then you run to your computer to post it up online. Good granny. He said goodnight to his mom and went to sleep. 5 hours later, his mom woke up in the middle of the night because of a loud noise. David was gone. That morning, a few hours later, the police found him in the sewer. His neck broke and his face skin peeled off. Ugh! Oh, that's like a real bad movie that was out a long time ago. If you don't repost the saying, they hurt her, or she was pushed, or they pushed her down a sewer, then Carmen will get you, either from a sewer, the toilet, or in this case, the shitter, the shower, or when you go to sleep, you'll wake up in the sewer, in the dark, then Carmen will come and kill you. Sounds like a bad Freddy Krueger TV show.
Yeah. Another version.
Oh, there's another version? Oh, wow. Okay. Another version of the Carmen Winstead story. Carmen was 17 years old when her parents decided to move to Indiana. Her father had lost his job, and the only way he could find new employment was by moving to a new state. The relocation caused a lot of problems for Carmen. She had to leave her friends behind and attend a whole new school in Indiana. Carmen had a hard time making friends when she changed schools. That normally happens.
Yeah.
It was the middle of the school year, and most of the students had no interest in befriending the new girl. Initially, she spent many days alone, walking from class to class without speaking to anyone, but she eventually started hanging around with a group of 5 other girls. Carmen thought these girls were her friends, but it wasn't long before she discovered that they had been talking about her behind her back and spreading vile rumors. What is this, the gay version of the witchcraft?
I don't know.
Or the craft, or whatever it is, with girls. When she confronted them, the girls turned on her and began bullying her every day, making her life a misery. That doesn't make sense. Read what you type before you screw it up. They started out calling her names, but then the bullying got much worse. One day, she left her school books in the classroom at break time. When she returned, she found someone had taken a Sharpie and written dirty words all over her books. Another day, she opened her bag and discovered someone had poured yogurt all over the insides. Sometimes she would come to school and find her locker had been vandalized. The final straw came when she put on her coat at recess and found that someone had stuffed dog poop, or in this case, dog shit, in her pockets. What, just she couldn't smell it? There and then, Carmen decided that she couldn't take the bullying any longer. She planned to stay behind that evening after school and tell her teacher what had been happening. Unfortunately, her decision came too late to save her life. Just like today.
Yeah.
Teachers are fucking stupid and don't give 2 shits. After lunch, her teacher announced that the school was holding a fire drill. When the alarm sounded, Carmen and the other students filed out of the classroom and assembled in the yard outside. As the teachers read out loud the roll call, what is this, fucking boot camp now? The gang of 5 girls decided that this was a great opportunity to embarrass Carmen in front of the whole school during the fire drill. They moved over to where Carmen was standing near a sewer drain and began crowding the poor girl, getting in her face and nudging her towards the open manhole. They pushed her and she tripped over and fell head first down the manhole. When they saw her falling, the girls started giggling, and when Carmen's name was called out, they shouted, "She's down in the sewer!" I would have slapped these bitches so hard they would be reborn. All the other students began laughing. But when the teachers looked down the manhole and saw Carmen's body lying at the bottom in the muck, in the poop, the laughter abruptly stopped. Her head was twisted around at an odd angle, and her face was covered in blood. Worse still, she wasn't moving. Well, no shit, Dick Tracy. Did you get a biscuit for that after you figured it out? There was nothing any of the teachers could do for her. Carmen was dead. When the police arrived and went down into the sewers, they determined that she had broken her neck. Her face had been torn off when she hit the ladder on the way down, and her neck snapped when she landed on her head on the concrete at the bottom. Well, no shit, that's what usually happens. She's not going to bounce. The police hauled Carmen's body out of the sewer and sent her to the mortuary. Everyone had to stay behind after school while the police questioned all of Carmen's classmates. The 5 girls lied to the police, saying they had witnessed Carmen falling down the sewer. The police believed the girls, and Carmen Winstead's death was ruled an accident, and the case was closed. Everyone thought that was the last they would hear of Carmen Winstead. But they were wrong. Even back then, the police were still fucking stupid. Months later, Carmen's classmates began receiving strange emails on their MySpaces. Really, they had MySpace back then. The emails were titled, "They Pushed Her," and claimed that Carmen hasn't really fallen down the sewer. She had been pushed. The emails also warned that the guilty people should own up and take responsibilities for their crime. Not in today's day's life. If they didn't, there would be horrible consequences. That doesn't make sense. Most people dismissed the emails as a hoax, but others were not so sure. A few days later, one of the girls who pushed Carmen down the sewer was at home taking a shower. Hopefully it was a dirty one. When she heard a strange crackling laugh. It seemed to be coming from the drain. The girl started to freak out and ran out of the bathroom. That night, the girl said goodnight to her mom and went to sleep. 5 hours later, her mom was awoken in the middle of the night by a loud noise that resounded throughout the house. That doesn't even make sense. Man, whoever wrote this article is stupid and doesn't pay attention. Yes, I know. That was our little monkey. She ran into her daughter's room only to find it emptied. There was no trace of the girl, or in this case, the cunt.
One of the cunts.
The worried mother called the police, and when they arrived, they conducted a search of the area. Eventually, they discovered the girl's grisly remains. Her corpse was lying in the sewer, covered in muck and poop. Shit. Her neck was broken, and her face was missing. Oh, good. She probably got it. Talk about getting a free facelift. Probably made her look better. It had been completely torn off. One by one, all of the girls who pushed Carmen that day were found dead. Oh, there was a happy ending to that one. They had all been killed in exactly the same way and were all found at exactly the same spot. In the sewer, at the bottom of the same uncovered manhole where Carmen had met her doom. But the killing didn't stop there. More and more of Carmen's former classmates were found dead. It seemed that anyone who didn't believe that Carmen had been pushed was eventually found down the sewer with their necks broken and their faces torn off. Pennywise got them. They say that Carmen's ghost is still on the rampage, hunting down anyone who doesn't believe her story. According to the legend, Carmen will get you, whether it's from a shitter, toilet, a shower, a sink, or a drain. When you go to sleep, you'll wake up in the sewer, in complete darkness, paralyzed, unable to move, hearing crackling laughter all around you. What the fuck was that? Then, as you scream in horror, Carmen will come and tear your face off. So be careful who you bully, because you just might find yourself on the receiving end of the curse of Carmen Winstead. Holy crap. That comes from Texas, Houston area.
Take a break so I can get through this one. This email. Experts studied the DNA. We're actually going way across the pond in the ocean to Scotland.
And right now, they're in the news.
Experts studied DNA from Loch Ness. They made a mind-boggling discovery about Nessie.
Conspiracy or theory?
Let's find out. A team of scientists gathered at Scotland's Loch Ness, a sprawling, murky body of water in the country's highlands. There, these experts collect scores of water samples to figure out exactly what lurks beneath the surface. For what purpose? Well, the New Zealand researchers believe they may be able to finally take a drink of stubble, determine whether or not a legendary monster has ever lived there. And after performing extensive DNA testing, the group does indeed reveal a stunning revelation concerning the mythical Loch Ness monster. Come on. Here we go. Let's see. This is good news for the scientists.
Try that. It might help you out better.
As geneticist Professor Neil Jamel actually started the study with the hook of the Loch Ness monster. For he knew that his water sampling project would turn more heads if it incorporated the famous monster, the famous creature. But before Jamel and his team launched the research, he told The Guardian in 2019 that they could reveal more about the entire loch, not just its supposed famous inhabitant. Yet, the Loch Ness monster has been in the public's consciousness since 1933, when a newspaper published a sensational report. You see, an eyewitness had apparently seen what appeared to be a creature with the body of a whale. This beast then rolled through the loch's water, the article claimed. The description also referred to it as a monster for the first time.
Shocking. Referred to it as a whale. What the fuck?
And yet, no one has ever been able to officially confirm the existence of the Loch Ness monster. This is despite a few photographs claiming to do so over the years, of course. Yeah, the photographs are all grainy as hell. Okay. But millions of people nonetheless trek to the highlands every year, hoping to catch a glimpse of the legendary beast. So it could be that Jamel's research crystallizes what we already know about Nessie. But the monster may not be what people originally thought. Come on, here we go. As previously mentioned then, the Loch Ness Monster became headline news in 1933. But an earlier newspaper account may have also mentioned strange goings-on in the loch. People have had their own sightings, too, that weren't necessarily published nationwide. For example, a person named D. Mackenzie supposedly saw a creature that squirmed and churned the water way back in 1870s. Come on, here we go. Bear with me, people. These fucking ads are like fucking up the damn thing. Here we go. Yet, it was the 1933 sighting of Nessie that proved to be the most electrifying. And it was the Inverness Courier that told the story of a couple named Aldi and John McKay. The pair had apparently been driving along Loch Ness on April 15th when Aldi claimed to have spotted a massive creature rolling through the murky water. In 2017, the Inverness Courier actually reprinted the original 1933 report too. It was headlined, "Strange Spectacle in Loch Ness." The piece described Aldi's experience, stating, "The creature disported itself, rolling and plunging for fully a minute. Its body resembling that of a whale, and the water cascading and churning like a simmering cauldron. Still, however, it disappeared in a boiling mass of foam." The 1933 article also described the Mackenzies' reactions. They thought they had seen something far beyond the ordinary. The article read, "Both onlookers confessed that there was something uncanny about the whole thing, for they realized that there was no ordinary denizen of the depths, perhaps apart from its enormous size." That's what she said. The beast, in taking the final plunge, sent out waves that were big enough to have been caused by a passing steamer. And the thing, to this day, people are still trying to debunk Nessie. In the same year, too, another shocking sighting made the pages of the Courier. This time, George Spicer claimed to have spotted the monster while cruising around Loch Ness with his wife in their vehicle. Yet Spicer described a much more terrifying creature that, amazingly, crossed the road in front of them.
That sounds like a bad joke.
Yeah. In fact, he said the beast had another animal dangling from its mouth. Well, maybe Nessie was fucking hungry. Shit. Yes, Spicer told of a beast more unique than a whale-like animal that Aldi McKay had seen. The tailor claimed, for instance, that the creature had a long neck and a high back. So it was like a fucking long neck dinosaur. And Spicer theorized the creature had webbed feet. Okay, so it's a fucking dinosaur that fucking swam that had the head of a fucking long neck dinosaur. He told this newspaper that he saw the nearest approach to a dragon or a prehistoric animal that he had ever seen in his life. Okay, nearest approach to a dragon. Last time I knew, dragons didn't have webbed feet. As far as I've read in mythology, they didn't have feet. They didn't have webbed feet. Then in November 1933, a man named Hugh Gray alleged that he'd captured the Loch Ness Monster on camera, but the blurry photo had its critics, which I'm looking at.
Doesn't it always?
Huh?
Doesn't it always have critics?
Of course. I mean, what I'm looking at is the freaking tail of a whale. Or something, I don't know. But the picture's grainy. For many, in fact, it seemed as though the image depicted Gray's Labrador fetching a stick from the water. Well, Labrador dogs, they do look funny when they're running after a fucking stick through water. And Gray had actually taken his dog to Loch Ness on the day that he took the photo. Oh well. Well, that was debunked there. That fucker was trying to cash in on that shit. Yet, supposed photos of the Loch Ness Monster have always caused controversy among those trying to solve the mystery. In fact, nearly half a year after Gray's picture, the so-called surgeon's photo proved to be an even bigger phenomenon. Gynecologist Robert Kenneth Wilson also took the image, but didn't want the newspapers to reveal his identity. Understandable.
Probably would be thinking, well, if they did this, then they'll find me out as a fraud.
The press therefore ended up giving the photo to its strange name. Regardless, Wilson claimed that he had gotten a glimpse of Loch Ness when the monster had emerged from the depths. The gynecologist apparently then reached for his camera and quickly snapped a quartet of photos. Unfortunately, though, 2 of the 4 pictures came out blurry. Shocking. But he only needed 1 shot to cause a frenzy. No, you need a That's because Wilson's photograph seemed to reveal the shape of the monster's head and neck popping out of the water. Unlike many other images and stories about the Loch Ness Monster too, the surgeon's photograph didn't have that many detractors. Instead, it seemingly remained a piece of evidence that proved Nessie's existence. Believers subsequently used the photo to support their claims for almost 60 years. But then a relatively modern analyst in 1993 revealed that Wilson had actually staged the photo. How had he done this? By zooming in on an object much smaller than the supposed beast. Today, then, much of the Loch Ness related arguments and evidence have ended up like Wilson's photograph, negated or otherwise corroborated. Back in 1933, for instance, a team of 20 men trekked into the lake to stand near constant guard for a 5-week period. Yet, all the photos that they took were inconclusive or determined to be of other animals, such as seals. Come on. Here we go. Skeptics originally point to plenty of explanations such as this, but it's not just seals that they believe have been mistaken for the Loch Ness Monster. In the case of the surgeon's photograph, for example, some people think the creature's long neck is actually an elephant's unfurled trunk. It's even said that traveling circuses might have brought their mammalian performers to the loch for a swim. And Wilson could have captured that on film. But there are other theories. Let's see what these theories include. Shall we? In 2013, zoologist Jeremy Wade even performed his own televised investigation. Shocking. And he theorized that the Loch Ness Monster was actually a Greenland shark. Even I find that kind of hard to believe that it could be a shark. The latter's dimensions would actually align with those of the monster, he argued. The sharks can range up to 50 feet in length, after all. But it was also suggested that a Greenland shark could feast on the loch's salmon supply, sustaining it for years. What kind of fucking shark is this? A fucking bull shark? Due to the fact bull sharks do live in salt and regular water. Yet others believe the Loch Ness Monster is actually an extremely large, that's what she said, specimen of Wels catfish. Species of catfish. The theory goes that someone may have introduced the species into Loch Ness around the turn of the 20th century. So by the time 1933 rolled around, one of the catfish might have just reached the supposed size of the beast. Catfish do not get that big. I could be wrong. And then there's the theory that the Loch Ness Monster had survived all odds to continue swimming in the Scottish Highlands. More specifically, Some have suggested that the beast is actually a dinosaur, meaning a plesiosaur to be exact. So they believe that the prehistoric creature somehow survived the mass extinction that killed off the rest of its species. That could be a pretty good theory to try to prove. But it seems that it's not just animals that could be mistaken for the Loch Ness Monster. For instance, the Daily Mirror reported in 1933 that a washed-up tree trunk had been responsible for one particular sighting. Then, in the 1980s, an article for New Scientist suggested that decomposing pine logs could rise to the surface, mimicking a monster's motions. Come on. Okay, new rule. Don't get any fucking news articles from Zen Herald. Natural occurrences, including even the weather itself, could potentially create the conditions for the Loch Ness Monster sightings too. You see, ripples caused by the loch's stretched out shape could perhaps give the illusion that a monster is swimming just under the surface. Many forget, of course, that the loch runs along the Great Glen Fault, and a release of gas underwater could produce a dramatic effect above the water. Yeah, if it's proven that the fault's actually doing it. Ultimately, though, no single explanation for the Loch Ness Monster has ever stuck. Instead, people believe what they want and see what they want when it comes to the beast. This is why some hesitate to label the legend as a hoax. In fact, skeptic Ronald Binns outlined this narrative in 2 books on the monster, saying there is a sociological phenomenon surrounding it. Come on! About to throw this fucking mouse. So this fascination with the Loch Ness Monster may explain its popularity, even though solid evidence has yet to emerge. For not only has Nessie long been a point of conversation, it's also been a part of pop culture. In 1959's The Private Life of Sherlock Holmes, for instance, filmmakers created a 30-foot model of the monster, and endless other TV shows, cartoons, and books have gone on to help keep the monster in the public consciousness. And when they're not at the movies, pursuing pictures, or reading up on the monster's history, Nessie, fans can try and catch a glimpse of the monster in person too. In fact, thousands of enthusiasts do just that while visiting Loch Ness every year. The Highlands Lake is one of Scotland's most popular tourist attractions, after all. It is a big-ass body of water. Experts still want to know the truth about Nessie, after all. So, does the monster exist or not? Well, in 2018, Professor Neil Jamel used this undying curiosity to help launch a study into Loch Ness. For he wanted to use DNA testing to identify the many species that dwell beneath the water. That's one way to figure it out. And in doing so, he might perhaps reveal the truth about the Loch Ness Monster too. Before the start of the study, Jamel told The Guardian, while the prospect of looking for evidence of the Loch Ness Monster is the hook of the project, there is an extraordinary amount of new knowledge that we will gain from the work about organisms that inhabit Loch Ness. And he had no doubt, not the band, but the idea of no doubt, that his team would learn something new about the freshwater lake. Of course, anything that swims through Loch Ness will leave a bit of DNA behind in the water. Skin cells, feathers, fur, and scales. Even shit and urine.
Ew.
All contain traces of creatures' genetic materials. So gathering water samples will reveal what lurks beneath. As long as the DNA matches that of species already chronicled by scientists. Even if a perfect match is not found. Though the researchers could stick compare it and learn new things. In any case, Jamel believed that he and his research team would uncover new species, particularly clusters of Loch Ness-based bacteria. And also a seemingly small discovery that information would show how invasive newer species have proven to be for the loch. But, as we know, it wouldn't necessarily be the biggest draw to the outside world. You'd be surprised. Because, of course, there was also the potential for solving the mystery of the Loch Ness Monster. That wasn't Jamel's purpose in performing his research. But, by the time his study concluded, he did have his own theory as to what species the creature truly belonged to. And he shared this in September 2019. Let's see what he shared, shall we? By the time Jamel and his team had completed their monumental research, firstly, they visited Loch Ness for 2 weeks and gathered the numerous water samples that they needed. Then they analyzed the liquid to discern the genetic material contained within. Yet some of their subsequent findings didn't shock anyone, as much as the Loch Ness ecosystem is comprised of small creatures. Jamel and his team also found DNA from humans, pigs, sticklebacks, whatever that is, and deer. Yet, what they didn't find was evidence of any monster, at least not in the way Nessie had been described in the past. So it seemed that the monster was not a seal, or an elephant, or a catfish. And instead, Jamel and his researchers came up with a new explanation. that they could back up with DNA evidence. Yes, the team claimed that those who'd supposedly seen a monster in the past could have actually seen a giant eel. This species had left its traces in the water's genetic material. During a 2019 press conference at the Loch Ness Centre, or in English, in the UK terms, Sentry, Jamel explained to reporters, "It is possible there are very large eels, but it depends how big you think large is." So his speculative theory provides another possible explanation for sightings of the monster since 1933. But he emphasized that no giant eels have ever been caught, and that the record weight for an eel caught in Europe actually stands at around 12 pounds. So a giant eel isn't really that big.
You mean it really not that heavy?
That too. Interestingly, though, Jamel and his team found a high quantity of eel DNA in the waters of Loch Ness, and the study author joked about the source of that much genetic material. He said, "We don't know." I'm going to repeat that. "We don't know if the eel DNA we are detecting is from a gigantic eel or just many small eels." In other words, they don't know. Seriously speaking, Jamel elaborated on the theory of the eels and how they could potentially grow to such a size. I beg to differ. He explained the notion that these eels could normally migrate to reproduce, but they, for whatever reason, don't. And they continue to grow to a very large size, foregoing reproduction for growth. Okay. Crucially, though the scientists' research could rule out some of the other long-standing theories about the Loch Ness Monster. For example, Jamel could definitely rule out the dinosaur theory for one. The study leader explained, "Is there a plesiosaur in Loch Ness? No. There's absolutely no evidence of any reptilian sequences. So I think we could be fairly sure that there is probably not a giant scaly reptile swimming around in Loch Ness." Has anybody ever tried going down in it and actually going down to the fucking seabed of it? But Jamel did admit that the study had a few shortcomings. You see, the DNA testing had failed to detect seals or otters, both of which live in Loch Ness. In other areas, though, the results came back with stunning clarity. Let's see how stunning the clarity is. Jamel said, "We may have missed things, but we found all the species we know are residents in Loch Ness in respect to the fish." Yet, the University of Otago geneticist pointed out how, in some respects, his research for the monster had ended like the others. He said more and more studies providing more and more negative evidence cast more and more doubt on the possibility, but we can't prove a negative. You kind of, you understand what that meant? Okay. Emphasis on that fucking paragraph. prove what a negative is. But Jamel brushed off the notion that his DNA tests had effectively ended the search for Nessie. Instead, he countered, there's still some level of uncertainty there. So there is still the opportunity for people to believe in monsters. Is it front page news? I don't know. But we've captured some imaginations. Ultimately, though, the researcher's aim wasn't to find the Loch Ness Monster. He wanted to flaunt the merits of environmental DNA. And by Jamel's estimation, he had done just that. The scientist said more people now know about environmental DNA than ever before. I would imagine, and he thinks, that's a good thing. Because we need these tools to be able to document what is living in places as, slowly but surely, our world becomes less special. Nice, Doc.
When was our world ever special? Never!
Anywho, I need a drink here. Hold on. Speaking of mysterious beasts, though in early January 2014, scientists actually found a monster of the deep in the shallow water of Laguna Ojo de Libre. The lagoon is on Mexico's Pacific coast, in the northeast of the Mexican province of Baja, California, sir. Whatever. You say Baja, I say Baja. Laguna Ojo de Libre, Eye of the Hare Lagoon, hare as in a rabbit type of hair, is part of the Vizcaino Biosphere Reserve, a UNESCO World Heritage Site. The area, once called Scamon's Lagoon, and the surrounding waters provide excellent habitats for a wide variety of marine species and waterfowl. For example, harbor seals, blue whales, gray whales, and 4 species of marine turtles. And it's not saying the fucking Ninja Turtles. For those who are thinking, 4 species of turtles are all to be found there. What's more, many of the animals use these waters as their breeding grounds. However, this particular creature was certainly unfamiliar. Once experts lifted it out of the water and were able to examine it closely, they realized what it is. Moreover, the animal was so astonishingly rare that there were no known previous scientific records of it. Maybe Nessie knows how to fucking evade dumbasses. The experts realized what they were looking at was a set of gray whale twins that were conjoined. Anyone ever heard of conjoined twins? That happens with some humans. That happens with some gray whales. That is to say, as they developed to their mother's womb, the fetuses had fused together, in this case at the stomach. Whether they had been stillborn or had died soon after birth remains a mystery. It is also unknown if the mother survived the birth. Although conjoined twins are not unknown in Wales, the database of the National History Museum in Los Angeles County didn't turn up any other cases of conjoined gray whale young. However, such twins have been recorded in Skye, McKee, and humpback whales. Jim Dines, the collections manager at the museum, told National Geographic, because of their reproductive biology, whales and dolphins also almost always have a single baby. And they said almost always. However, Dines added, in the case of twins, the mother has to provide nourishment for 2 growing fetuses. And that may result in 2 slightly smaller fetuses, rather than 1 normal-sized one. They were pretty sizable. There's a fair chance the mother was trying to deliver them and couldn't. Given the extreme rarity of conjoined whales, it's unsurprising that scientists are unable to come to firm conclusions. Dines went on to say that a normal gray whale pregnancy lasts for about 13.5 months. Okay, so 13 and a half months. He estimated that these conjoined babies were probably between 8.5 and 10.5 months old. Moreover, even if these twins had gone to a full-length gestation, he felt that it would have been extremely unlikely that they'd have survived in the wild. Did you figure that out by yourself by looking at it? Dines explained that because the twins were joined at the stomach, this would have made it virtually impossible for them to breathe. Like all whales, these animals would have to come to the surface for air. However, being joined at the stomach would mean that their blowholes were pointing to the side instead of upwards. Consistently, they'd be unable to take in the air they needed to survive. Gray whales are sometimes known as Californian or Pacific gray whales, and their scientific name is, oh god, I'm going to end up butchering it, Ashrichtius robutus. They are a type of baleen whale, which means that they feed by swimming through the sea and filtering out their prey, such as various crustaceans, from the water. The baleen is the filter-like adaptation in the gray whale's mouth, through which it sucks in water. These magnificent dark gray creatures can weigh up to 40 tons and grow up to 49 feet in length, with a typical lifespan of between 55 and 70 years. The gray whale lacks a dorsal fin, instead having a back that's humped and ridged. They generally feed in shallow waters near the shore. The whales do most of their feeding during the summer months, when they are in chilly northern seas. This enables them to lay down fat reserves for their long journey south. Once the calves are born, they can drink up to a staggering 300 gallons of the mother whale's milk every day. That's a whole lot of milk. The milk is a hefty, that's what she said, 53% fat. Human milk, on the other hand, is just 3 to 5% fat. One of the most astonishing things about these gargantuan humans, gargantuan, thank you, animals, is the huge distances that their annual migrations take them. The eastern Pacific gray whales travel all the way south, that's what she said, from the cold waters of the far northern Pacific to the warmer climes off the Californian and Mexican coast. After the winter, they subsequently swim back to the Arctic region. This can mean that they've made a round trip of around 12,000 miles. However, it is known that at least one gray whale exceeded the usual 12,000 migration journey. Moreover, in the process, they created a record for the world's longest mammal migration on record. The whale, known as Varvara, was tracked with satellite monitor tags by Russian and American scientists for 6 months in 2011 and 2012 as she swam across the Pacific. After her return journey to Russia's Sakhalin Island from Bahia, Mexico, Varvara had covered some 13,760 miles. The whale that gave birth to the conjoined twins would have traveled south from the feeding grounds to feeding grounds it frequents during the summer months in the Bering Sea and Chukchi Sea, which lie between Russia and Alaska. The female whale would have found a partner in bred once it reached the Pacific Sea off California and Mexico. Later, it would calve in the same waters. One of the best places to find gray whales is the San Ignacio Lagoon in the Gulf of California. There, the animals will actually swim to boats carrying whale watchers. In fact, on occasion, they will even allow themselves to be touched. This has earned the whales the local nickname of the friendly ones. The eastern gray whales, the ones that travel each year to the Pacific off California, Mexico, are thriving. Currently, their population is established at between 20,000 and 22,000. In contrast, the western gray whales, which scientists believe migrate between the Sea of Okhotsk off the coast of Russia and waters in southern Korea, is considered to be crucially endangered. Indeed, the population of this group may be as low as 130. Well, no kidding. Furthermore, we have already lost one population of gray whales to extinction. Go figure. They once inhabited the North Atlantic, but died out there sometime in the 18th century. But that was because whaling was a thing back then. The reasons for their extinction are unclear, but overfishing could have been the cause. How about the fact that there was whaling back then, you fucking schmuck? There was even some fossil evidence that indicate that these whales may also have bred and calved in the Mediterranean. When the conjoined whale twins were discovered in January 2014, it was just 30 years after a catastrophic tsunami that engulfed the Fukushima power plant in Japan. This led some people to speculate that the underlying reason for this rare conjoined twin phenomenon might be radiation that leaked from the stricken plant. I didn't know conjoined twins in whales was a thing. Was done by radiation. However, Jim Deans offered words of reassurance. In the past year or so, when we have marine mammals that strand there in California, and we've had the tissues tested for radiation, there's nothing there, he said. Just because an animal like a whale has twins, that doesn't mean it's been subjected to radiation. Humans have twins all the time, and he's got a really good point on that. The coming out... Oh, wrong one. Hold on. That's it for that story. Your next urban legend, dear.
Let's see, what was it? Oh, yeah. Next one, and I don't know how the hell this is possible.
Okay.
Because there's the opposite song of this, and I think somebody's trying to do a song of this one.
Candy Lady?
Yes.
Yeah, I've heard of the Candyman.
Yeah, that was a song, and now somebody's trying to make a music out of the Candy Lady.
Not the movie, you morons.
This is 2015 on October 23rd. It's called The Candy Lady. I don't want none of her candy, thank you. Around the turn of the 20th century, children started going missing in a small rural country in Texas.
Sounds a little too, Hansel and Gretel, if you ask me.
I was just thinking of that. People blamed it on the Candy Lady, a woman who supposedly lured children to her home with candy. Oh yeah, this is definitely Hansel and fucking Gretel. What the hell? Then they were never heard from again. Yeah, and that movie was badly portrayed.
Well, which version of, well, keep reading, let's see what version this actually
is, or related to.
Is it, basically the horror-based from, like, years ago, from, like, fucking maybe centuries ago?
You mean the book?
That too.
The movie just was...
Kids Nursery Rhyme.
Was just a couple years ago, I think, that came out. 2018?
You're talking about the horror movie that I watched.
Yeah.
No.
The Hansel and Gretel one.
Those were adults, not kids.
I know, but still, they had the names Hansel and Gretel. Children in the area told stories of how they would wake in the morning to find candy sitting on their windowsills, fearing that their parents might try to stop the person, or thing, leaving the candy that didn't tell any adults. After a child had received the candy for a while, they would start to find notes on the wrappers, many times asking the children to come and play.
Well, when I hear notes on rappers, I'm thinking like the fucking bazooka joke things.
Oh, yeah.
Which were fucking stupid.
Well, at first they were fucking hilarious, and now they just can't come up with anything funny anymore.
As a kid, I even thought they were stupid.
I didn't. I thought they were hilarious. The notes were signed The Candy Lady. Over the span of about a decade, a handful of kids went missing. As some children got a little older, they started to confess that they had eaten candy left on their windowsill from the Candy Lady. You are some sick motherfuckers. According to the story, other strange things happened around this area that spooked the residents. A farmer found the rotten teeth of a child in a candy wrapper at the edge of one of his fields. A police deputy started investigating the disappearance of the children, and a few weeks later they found his dead body in a ditch. His eyes were stabbed with a fork.
Ow.
And his pockets were filled with candy. Talk about a bad candy machine. To this day, anytime a kid goes missing, all the locals say the candy lady got him. Children believe that she takes them somewhere and pulls out their teeth or stabs them with a fork.
That's something of an urban legend, yeah.
And that comes from Texas. Yay.
Again, not relation to Candyman.
No, but more towards Hansel and Gretel.
Yeah.
Maybe it could be the Candyman's wife. You never know.
Well, there is that legend of Candyman doing like similar with kids from years ago.
Yeah. Ooh. Starting to get a little hungry here, so we're going to
the movie Candyman was entirely in a different nature.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to stop the show here for now. My stomach is telling me it's time to eat. And we'll continue another time with more urban legends. And where we'll start is State Trooper Recalls Christmas Eve.
Yeah.
So that will do it for me, Paramike, and in the Deep Dark Dungeon.
I'm Paralore.
We say adieu and see you next time, right here on Everything Paranormal Podcast Show 2021.
Night.